72 holes, one epic cause. Cancer Council's The Longest Day is the ultimate golf challenge. 4 rounds of golf in one day to support people impacted by cancer. Have you got what it takes? Register now at thelongestday.org.au and get ready to tee off for a cancer-free future. Hello and welcome to episode 107 of The Thing About Golf, the podcast series from Golf Australia magazine trying to answer that most elusive of questions. What is it that gets people so hooked on this game? My name's Rod Murray, and while I told you in our last episode that we'd be hearing from Vinnie Giles on episode 107, it turns out that's not quite the case. The reason for that is because my colleague John Huggan has managed to snare an interview with the 2022 U.S Open champion Matt Fitzpatrick while in Dubai, and it's too good a chat not to release straight away. So we've put Vinny on hold for a bit, and instead we'll be hearing from the 29-year-old Englishman about all things golf. Huggy, well done and not well done all in one. I had Vinny Giles all ready to go. You've outdone yourself with this chat with one of the more game's interesting players, but you've messed with my schedule. One's forgivable, the other isn't.
That's my mission in life, of course, Rod, is to make your life more difficult.
And you do a fabulous job of it, it has to be said. Fitzpatrick is one of the more interesting and thoughtful players on the tour, isn't he? You can't say that about all of them, but he really is.
Yeah, he's a genuinely nice lad. I mean, sometimes you never want to meet your heroes, which we've said a million times. But yeah, he's a lovely lad. I mean, well brought up. His parents are obviously they've done a great job, and with him and his brother, who's going to be full time on the European Tour next year, having got his card quite comfortably this year. And we get into a little bit talking about the differences between Matt and his brother Alex. I mean, you could not find two more different personalities than those two. Matt was a self-confessed bit of a geek, stat-obsessed, numbers guy, but so organised you wouldn't believe. And his brother's all over the place, I think, in comparison, certainly. So it's fun to talk about that.
It's also interesting how, you'll hear people say this all the time and people will roll their eyes, but you can see people's personalities in their golf games. And that is a fabulous example, I think. Two super talented golfers, both of them. Same family, but totally different people, totally unrecognisable golf games. You could not, if you didn't know who they were, you would never say one was related to the other. Never. Yeah,
that's right. But it's the theory. I talked to Matt about this. His record in the Open Championship for someone at his level is really poor, and he's got no real explanation for why links golf, which on the face of it should suit him down to the ground. He's a great putter. Hits a lot of fairways, good out, good in the wind, that kind of stuff. But on paper, it looks as if he would be of the 4 majors, that would be the one he'd be best suited to. But far from it, it's exactly the opposite. Yeah. So he was certainly of the opinion that the U.S. Open would be the one that he felt most likely that he would win, and sure enough, that's happened. But that's not always the case. I think I cited the example of Jeff Ogilvy.
I was about to mention his name. You never would have picked him for the US Open. Never.
No, nor would he.
No.
That's the thing.
A Masters, an Open, definitely. A US Open, never.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that's probably the beauty of golf, isn't it? I mean, we never quite know what's going to happen.
No, especially that US Open, it has to be said to at Wing.
Yes, true.
That was not Ogilvy territory, one wouldn't have thought. He's one of the few modern players I can think of who really he's built a golf swing that has taken him from very good to world class. It's not quite Nick Faldo, not a long way off though, is it?
No, well, he went down the very dangerous path. Again, we talk about this of going for extra distance and succeeded without hurting his performance. I mean, we've all seen the many examples of people who have chased distance and have ruined their careers or disappeared. I mean, the example I think I cited was who's happily now got his card back in Europe, Matteo Manacero, the Italian, who was incredibly good. Very young, won the BMW PGA at Wentworth. It was that good. And other tournaments before he was, I think, even 20. Chased distance because that was the one thing he thought he lacked and ruined his game. And now is just kind of climbing his way back onto the tour. So that's the danger of that kind of thing. But Matt has successfully negotiated that path. And has never. If you look at his career, he just kind of he's one of those guys that ticks things off. Yeah. You know, he ticks all the boxes at a very steady rate, and that's kind of how his career has gone.
We talked about personalities. It's not a spectacular golf game, is it? But it's an extraordinarily good one.
No, that's what he said. He even said that himself. I mean, there's nothing stands out with him. It's all really good. Yeah. That's just how it works.
Is he one of those golfers who's wise beyond his years? As I said, he's 29. He feels like he might be closer to 40 in golf terms.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, he still looks about 12. Yeah,
that's exactly. He's Steve Allen, isn't he?
He's someone who's looked older than his years all his life. Me, for example, it's kind of I was looking across at him yesterday and I'm thinking, my goodness, he's almost 30 and he still looks, maybe 12 might be a slight exaggeration, but he still looks very young. Yes. So.
Well, it is a terrific chat, and I hope other people enjoyed as much as I did. Thanks for joining us to introduce it, Huggy.
My pleasure.
Okay, welcome to the latest edition of the Thing About Golf podcast. My guest this time around is a very special one, a major champion no less, Matt Fitzpatrick, all the way from Yorkshire. What was and is the thing about golf for you?
The thing about golf for me is you can play it with anyone and have a great game. Me as a professional golfer that plays every day, I can play against anyone off, 18 handicap and have a really close match or whatever the handicap really is. I can, have a good competition, whereas you can't do that in any other sport. So I think that's what makes it a special game.
Well, funny you should mention that now. We'll work backwards. I mean, your most recent victory was alongside your mum.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it was that was a special one. That really was. It was one that we'd been looking forward to all year, obviously, and it was just so fun to obviously win with her.
I mean, she handled it pretty well. We're talking about the Dunhill Links for those who don't know, but she seemed to handle it really well. Does your competitive side of your nature come from your mum or your dad, or is it? Because she looked as if she was in her element.
Yeah, no, she did enjoy it. I would say my dad, though, when we were younger, he was always, making sure he tried to beat us in everything that we did. So, I would say mainly come from dad. But I think, it's funny. I think as me and my brother have got more into golf, I think she's become more competitive because of that, because she wants obviously us to win. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. And which one of the two are you most like then? Because I only ask that because as it's become apparent with your brother's emergence is that you're very different people, very different personalities. Yeah. So which side are you coming from?
I would say I'm definitely like my mum. Yeah, definitely like my mum. Mm-hmm. I would say my dad is definitely like Alex, and that's probably why they clash, I would say.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a typical father-son thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, that's it's pretty funny because they are very much alike.
So if you could sum up the two personalities, then give me yours first and then his.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm probably quite reserved, quite shy, I guess, in a way, and I'm probably not. I kind of like to do my own thing. I would say I'm like a bit of an introvert, really. Whereas I'd say Alex is the opposite. He's not loud or obnoxious. He's just very talk to anyone. Super polite. Just like really, bubbly kid. Full of confidence. It's we are polar opposites.
Yeah, I remember the first time I met him was at the Walker Cup he played in at Hoylake, which you were there. I can remember walking a few holes with you. And I remember being struck then as to how different you were. I mean, to the point of laughing about it,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's just funny how it's kind of worked out, really, that, we have been like that. And it's funny just spending time with him recently. He was staying with me at my house, and he is just very opposite to me, and it's kind of like I see him doing certain things and I'm like, no, don't do that. I'm trying to help him, obviously.
Well, you got to give me an example of that. Come on.
Well, I mean, it's just like his organisation, and I think he'd say it for himself. He's got better this year. Well, that's what I mean. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. I know my schedules, the calendar. It's all And it's like, ask him, he's like, oh, yeah, the 15th or the 16th, I think it is that I'm flying. Should I do this? I'm not sure. It's just like, you know, I know where I need to be every second of the day, pretty much. And it doesn't necessarily feel that way with Alex.
Yeah, I can imagine. Anyway, let's go back to almost the beginning. I take your dad. It sounds like your dad was the one that got you into the game.
Yeah.
And how quickly did it become apparent that specials are not the word I quite want to use? The fact that you were exceptional.
I mean, I wouldn't even say that it was kind of a thing when I was 14, 15, that it was like, wow, you know, what a player. Because I didn't do anything that nowadays kids do. You know, I didn't hit it long, and it wasn't like this incredible ball striking talent where people blown away. There was none of that. I think my thing always was about work ethic, and you know, that was one great thing about my parents. It was always up to me. You know, they'd support me all the way, but you know, they would say, if you want to, you know, get where you want to get, then you got to work hard, which I totally understood. It wasn't like you must go to the driving range, you must go and practice. And
what was their working background?
My dad was a corporate bank manager, and my mum worked in insurance. And so, I would say organized people. Yeah. I think, you know, it's funny, really. It didn't really become apparent to me until probably the last year or so that, and I don't know why it did, but how much they actually gave up. You know, they gave up their weekends to go take me to play golf. They gave up their weekdays. They took time off work, you know, and I think back and I'm like, wow, they really did give up a lot.
Was your norm.
But at the time, it was the norm. Yeah, it was like, oh, just go play a golf tournament. They'll take me. It's no issue. Unlike when other kids said, oh, I've come myself, or my friends brought me. I'm thinking, oh, that's a bit weird. You know, why wouldn't your parents just bring you? But now looking back, you know, how much you have to give up to do that. And, you know, I'm incredibly, you know, words can't describe how grateful I am for them.
Mm-hmm. What sort of things have you been able to do for them?
I mean, my dad's played Augusta. That's pretty nice as a golfer. But no, you know, playing my mum in the Dunhill, that's pretty special. Bringing them out to, you know, the States, any tournaments that I play, you know, normally that we're obviously in Dubai this week.
Are they both retired?
They are now, yeah. I mean, they both help me out with with bits and pieces, but, you know, they come out to this tournament pretty regularly, and just, you know, I want them to feel like they have that freedom to go and travel, and not just to see me and Alex, just to go on holiday as well, because, you know, in my eyes, they thoroughly deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So at what point did the switch get flicked in your relationship with golf?
Yeah, again, I think I had to start taking it seriously in about when I was about 15. I was still playing football up at that point, so
position.
I was playing centre half for my school.
Centre half?
Yeah, I know. I read the game well, John. I read the game well. Yeah. If only you could see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was playing up until then, and then I had that decision to make. Obviously, didn't want to get injured.
It's clear that Sheffield United were not coming.
Well, there you go. But yeah, it was one of those things that it was kind of that time, really. I had to decide, and yeah, I went with golf. I was playing for Yorkshire, and I was on the verge of getting in the England squad for England under 16s, and that was kind of the serious, you know, started taking it seriously point. The point at which, actually, I felt, okay, I could be pretty good. Well, honestly, it wasn't until probably winning the U.S Am, the summer of 2013.
Well, you won the boys before that. I mean, you were.
I did win the boys. I've got
it written down here. I mean, you were ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, I was, I guess, and probably more slowly but surely more than anything. But I think it was more, 100%. I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, you know, part of me looks back, I was so glad I wasn't this like child phenomenon winning everything at under 14, 15, 16, 17 level. I
was watching Rory McIlroy play this morning, and he's been told he's special his whole life because he is. That brings its own pressure, doesn't it? Totally.
And I think I do feel lucky in that aspect that I've always been that way. You know, it's no one expects anything from me, which, you know, is, in my opinion, is a great way to
hang
have
on
you.
a minute. Nobody expects anything.
No, but you know, I mean, you know, I'm not turning up even now as a major winner. I'm not turning up to major winners. I'm not turning up to majors, and people are like, "Oh yeah, Matt Fitzpatrick, he's got a chance this week." I know it's not true. Like, I know that's not true, and I love that. I have no issue with that at all, because I can just go about my business, and when I turn up, and when I don't, no one knows anyway.
You're like under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best place to be.
Well, you're less so than you used to be, though.
Yeah, definitely less so. Yeah, definitely less so.
Yeah. So, right, are we playing for England? We're playing for the boys team. We win the boys championship.
Yeah, so then I win the British boys, and that was kind of a big step. I then signed to go to Northwestern at the end of 2012. And that was where I was fully committed at that point in time to do 4 years of college at Northwestern. 2013 comes round, don't really do anything at the start, like May, June time. I'd just finished my A-levels, so that was tough at the time.
How many? Let's get it out.
I got all four, yeah.
What subjects?
Four A-levels. Geography, history, PE, I think.
Not memory, then.
And something else. I can't even remember. Yeah, exactly. Memorable.
Yeah.
So yeah, did those, but then obviously wasn't practicing because, you know, my parents always put education first and, you know, get a degree to fall back on if golf doesn't work out. And for me, like I'd been playing so badly throughout the whole start of the summer, May, June, and July came along, and there's a bit of an infamous story, really. Like the week before I went for Open qualifying, I played with my dad in just a medal at my home club, and he beat me gross. Yeah.
What's his handicap?
Well, he must have been about 7 at the time, and I was +4 or whatever I was. Yeah. So he beat me gross, and followed. 3-4 days later, I'm going up to Open qualifying for the Open, and I'm thinking to myself, I think I said it. I was like, "What's the point? My dad's just beat me or whatever," and not playing well. Anyway, ended up qualifying. I ended up beating Monty of all people. Ended up qualifying in one of the top 3 spots. Went to the Open, won the Low-Am. Then next month, end of July. Lost in the final of the English Amateur, and then won the U.S Amateur. So I think I would say those 3 events, not really that much the English Amateur, but I would say particularly, winning the Low Amateur at the Open, making the cut there was a big deal, and then winning the U.S Amateur was a bigger deal than I realized. At that
point, you're convinced.
Well, I mean, I think at that point I was like, okay, well, this is a real thing. I've been taking it seriously all this time. This has got legs, effectively. And I'll be honest, 17, 18-year-old, I'm not thinking about playing professional golf. I'm not thinking about having a job. Like, I'm just take one day at a time. I'm not smart enough to be thinking what's going on in a year's time, really.
And why did Northwestern not last?
Northwestern didn't last, really, because...
How long were you there?
Well, I was there 3 months, basically. Got there middle of September, left middle of December. And...
Was it a Chicago winter?
No, well, the end there, it was cold, yeah. But no, I didn't... I really enjoyed being there. I love the school. I love the people. I'm still very close with a lot of the friends that I made there. Pat Goss and David Ingalls, great coaches. The staff there when I was there, fantastic, and everything about it was great for me. I felt like it worked well. Yeah, you could argue, better weather would have been nice, and I would have had to agree with that, but I felt comfortable because Pat was a golf coach. He wasn't like a golf manager.
Yeah.
So I felt comfortable being there that I could get better, and they sold it well, and but it's a great academic school, and that's what I struggle with. I just listen, I'm not horrendous academically, but like that's top 10 in the country, and it's top 20 I think in the country, and it really is a high standard. So for me, I just struggled with the schoolwork, and then obviously winning the U.S. Amateur opened up all these doors. It was, come play at Harbour Town in the RBC Heritage, come play Memorial, come play
Masters.
Bay Hill, come play the Masters, the U.S. Open, the Open, all these opportunities. And I remember sitting down with Pat and David, and they were both saying, what you think is schedule wise.
Was the thought that you wouldn't be ready for those sort of challenges if you were still with the school?
No, not really, not at all. It was more like I wanted to play them all, and the reality was that I've got school, I've got a degree to study for, so you can't miss that much time.
Yeah.
You're looking at 5 tournaments there, 5 weeks off, and then you're going to go and play college tournaments on top of that, so you are missing a lot of time, and that just probably wasn't right. So I went home that Christmas. The school was hard. I don't think my grades were the best, and also, those opportunities. For all I know, I might never get them again. You go and play them once, and you want to give them your best shot.
Yeah.
But also, I could, it's not quite Northwestern, but I could go to another university. I could go to one in Sheffield, Manchester, wherever.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing, really, for me, is that, U.S. Amateur changed my life and changed the kind of the direction, I guess, that it was going in, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for people who haven't seen there's some wonderful pictures from that of you who, you still don't look very old, if you don't mind me saying. Someone who's looked old his whole life.
No, I don't.
Coming from me. But you looked about 12, and your wee brother who was caddying, he looked about 8.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so funny because I was 18 at the time, and Alex was 14, and it is so funny. And the funniest thing about that, actually, talking of the pictures, there's a picture with me and my brother in the centre with the US Amateur, and I think my mum's to the left and my dad's to the right. When I won the US Open, we got the exact same picture in the exact same order, just by chance, by pure chance, at the same place. Yeah. And it's really funny because you look at the picture and you look obviously how much different I am and my brother and everyone. It's it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean it always makes me smile. Just looking at them. I mean, your brother's so small.
Oh, I know. And the funny thing is, we laugh every time. Sometimes they show clips, but I think it was the hole that I was about to win the whole US Amateur on. I think 15. Alex took the putter head cover off, gave me the putter, but dropped the putter cover. Rather than just picking it up like anyone else, he was kicking it down the fairway because he loves football. He's kicking it down, kicking it.
Because that was fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like there's all this pressure, and this is what it means, and neither of us really had a clue what was going. We were just playing golf and beating the guy in front of us. So it's very funny.
Yeah, I mean, you must look back at that now and you think, wow. I mean,
100%.
U.S. Amateur.
100%. I think I only look back now, though, because I understand how much it means, how big the tournament is. And I've said this a lot in past interviews and stuff. I didn't realise the magnitude of it. I really didn't.
It's maybe the best thing.
And 100% that was the best thing. And that was always the way. My dad had entered me in tournaments. He'd be like, oh, this, either this is a really good golf course to play or this is a good event. It was never, you've got to play in the English under 14s, 15s. It was never like that. It was like, oh, this looks a good golf course. Let's go play in the 36-hole day that they have. It was like about, just having a nice experience more than anything. Yeah. And it was like, well, we'll take a US trip. You play the US, you're in the US Amateur because I was top whatever I was in the world amateur rankings. And, we'll have a few days there. You'll play and, you probably won't get past the second round or whatever. And then we'll go to New York after. And that was the original plan. Yeah. And I completely scuppered it for everyone involved, yeah.
When you look back at your amateur days, I mean, when I interviewed professionals like yourself who've done really well, they still look back on their amateur days with great pleasure and affection, especially the team play. Was that the case with you?
Yeah, I have to admit, I think my amateur career was very different to everyone else's. I feel it was anyway. I never played any men's golf. Obviously, the US Amateurs and men's golf, but I never played for England men. Never played men's home internationals. Nothing. So yeah. So I didn't really. I wouldn't say that my amateur career was kind of. I would say it was kind of mixed, really, because I felt at a junior level there was always southern bias to getting selected for England. I remember Yorkshire pushing really, really hard to get me in, and I was the only Yorkshire kid there for a long time, from when I was in under 16 level.
I think that's the same everywhere. Certainly the same in Scotland. Is that there's a feeling, rightly or wrongly, that the west of Scotland gets a more preferential treatment than the east.
And 100% it was the case when I was a junior, and so I never really felt like you were at a stage where you could be comfortable and thoroughly enjoy it. You're always kind of under that at that time. Obviously it's all relevant, isn't it?
I don't think much has changed by the way.
Well, yeah, but you're under that. You're under that. You feel like you're under the pressure. I'm in the boys' home internationals. I've got to play well here, and I'm in this, and I've got to play well here, and I'm in this, and I've got to play well. And it's like you're not really getting the enjoyment until you actually knock one off, until you win or whatever.
Well, I found that playing some of those team things, at the levels I played at a long time ago, but there was some guys in the team who they were happy just to make the team.
Yeah.
And there was other guys who wanted to win once they were in the team.
Yeah. You know what I mean? 100%. And I think that was the case, that when I look back at some of the the lads that I played with, some have gone on to play out on the European tour and PGA tour, all that sort of stuff. But you could kind of see back then which are the ones that you might, if you were to put money on it, you'd be like, I think he wants to be here.
You can tell.
What I mean? Yeah. He wants to put the work in, the effort in. And I think that's the thing at junior level. I think it's got to come from yourself rather than your parents.
Yeah.
And I think at junior level, that's always the big worry with a lot of parents.
Yeah. Just to finish up on the amateur stuff, you played in the Walker Cup at the National Golf Links in America, where I was watching it on television, admittedly, but you by a distance, you were the best player in the GB&I, in a well-beaten GB&I team. What was that experience like, knowing that you were the best player, probably?
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing. Yeah, that was amazing. Again, it's one of those, I didn't really know what to expect. I think it's one of those that you from a personal experience, you build it up to be this thing. It's like, I've got to make this team. And you make it, and then it doesn't necessarily quite go to plan, or it does, and you're just like, oh, like, this wasn't kind of what I expected it to be.
Yeah.
And
expand on that a little bit.
Well, my first Ryder Cup really is what I compare it to. It is like I made this big fuss and song and dance, and I was stressed and really, really worked up about making the team. It was my second year on tour, and I made the team, and I got there. I played, 2 games, 1 singles, 1 foursomes, and we got pretty well beat, and it was just like, oh, like, I got worked up for that. Like, I didn't even get an opportunity. I didn't even play well. Like, yeah, it was an amazing atmosphere, but we lost. Like, it's just like, meh. It's just really flat.
Yeah.
And I felt the same way about the Walker Cup in that.
But there wouldn't be any stress about you making that team. I mean, you were, as I say, you were
were
always going to be in that team.
There wasn't as much. No, there wasn't as much. I just think that once we got there, and I remember feeding this back years later, we had a great time of doing all the bits and pieces. We went into New York. We went to, baseball game and amazing life experiences, really things that, I remember forever. But in terms of actually going there to win, you look back and it's like, well, should we have spent more time practicing? Should we have done this differently? And should we have done that differently? And, I went to watch as a spectator to 2 of them now. on top of the one I played.
Yeah.
And
two that your brother played.
Two that my brother played, yeah. And you know, one was in the UK, one was in the US. You know, one was sort of a COVID year, so they didn't get to do much fun stuff, but kind of had the same feel about it. And I mentioned that to them at the time.
Amateur approach.
Yeah. And I mentioned to them at the time, I think, things could be done a little better, practice rounds or all these other things. And you look at, I know it's an amateur, but it's not like they've not got the budget to do such things. And but you look at how Luke ran the show at the Ryder Cup this year compared to how I know, others have been running the show in Walker Cups. It's very, very different, and I feel like it enhanced the experience, and the players would learn a ton, in my opinion, from that extra.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you remember this. It struck a chord with me back then, and it still does. When I was walking with you at Hoylake, watching your brother and the rest of them, you were astonished, I remember, by the complete lack of, strategy, course management, missing in the wrong places. You couldn't believe how bad they were on that front. And these are the elite amateurs.
Yeah, and I think if I look at myself, if I would describe myself from someone else's perspective, people probably might think I'm a bit overkill, and that's fine. I don't care, but I think there's a line to help people improve, and I think it goes a long way. I work with Steve Robinson, who does a lot of stuff for England women, and he does a little bit for the England men's team as well. But he's had a lot of success with England women's golf, and that's because he's drilled it into them to how to plan, how to plot your way around a course, what clubs to use. Super, super, super simple things, but he's done that over years and years, and it's like, it's built into them. Anyone who comes into the squad, they know how it works, and they've had success from on the back of it, and I think that's credit to Steve, because that's one reason why I hired him, because of his successful work, and I'd worked with him before as well on a bunch of things with Yorkshire, and it's just little things like that, and I think winning is a better experience than just having an enjoyable time. And I'm sure, a lot of people would say the same thing. In my opinion, I don't think GB and I should be losing at home. In my opinion.
Yeah, well, they were competitive this year at St Andrews.
Yeah, it got close, didn't it?
It followed the same pattern as Hoylake, in that they did all right, and then they just got steamrolled at the end. When the depth, the bit of depth told.
Yeah.
Calling all golf legends. Let's tee off for a cancer-free future this December. Cancer Council's The Longest Day is the ultimate golf challenge, where you'll play 4 rounds of golf in one day to support people impacted by cancer. Almost 1 in 2 Australians will be diagnosed with cancer before the age of 85. By working together, we can all play a part in reducing the impact of cancer for all Australians. Have you got what it takes? Grab your mates and register now at thelongestday.org.au, and let's tackle cancer together.
Now that you've owned up to being a complete geek, tell me, when did you start recording almost everything about every shot you ever,
Yeah, I mean, again,
and why?
It was actually when I brought Steve on, really. We started doing it properly, but I would say I've always kept stats from pretty much once I got into Yorkshire golf. So since I was like 14, couldn't tell you where those stats are, but... Right. Once I turned pro, 2015 onwards, always kept my stats, just to me, it was like I could always find ways of improving. It was a little bit here, a little bit there. You take a shot off, all of a sudden your stroke average comes down or whatever it is.
For a weekend.
Precisely. And they soon add up, and that's the difference. And a lot of the times it's little things. This year in my year-end report, 10 yards further with same fairways hit, it's half a shot around. That's 2 shots tournament. If you stood on the tee and I'm 10 yards longer than the person I'm stood next to, I'm better than 2 shots than him already. So it's little things like that. And I always felt that could go a long way. And I think at first I thought it was super black and white. It's like, it's easy. I just do this and this, and I'll do that. You know, it's not always as simple as that, but you know, the concept is there. Is it's there to help you. It's there to see where your weaknesses are, to see where your strengths are, how you can build on those, and that was what's such a draw to me. To just the constant search for improvement. Yeah.
What are the most important ones, or is it everybody's most important ones are different? I don't know.
Yeah, I think everyone's different. Everyone's is different. If I look at my pattern throughout my whole career on tour, certainly the last 5 years, strong driver, strong putter, approach play, you know, is below par, and short game's pretty average or whatever. But I think, you know, you compare that to probably John Rahm, great driver, great iron player. Well, I mean, he's great at everything really, but like, you know, he's probably most known for his long straight driving, as is Rory or whatever, and everyone's different. So for me, it's kind of like looking at my whole game, and it's keeping the strengths. So it's doing things to make sure we're still working on those to keep them as they are, but also to, you know, work on the weaknesses as well to make a difference.
So what turned out to be the most important ones for you?
Well, again, I think 2022 was 2022 was my biggest season. The two things that differed in that season compared to all the others, well, three, but yeah, I guess three really. One was cross-handed chipping.
I was getting to that.
Yeah, one was cross-handed chipping that all of a sudden, you know, my short game made a big bump. It was maybe like 0.4 of a shot a round for the average for 2022. So, you know, that's obviously 1.6 a tournament. Approach play improved from probably 0 to 0.3 a round. So again, that's another 1.2. So now at 2.8.
Almost at 3 shots.
So yeah, and then driving was the huge one. Put on 15, 20 yards through my speed work, gym work. And again, that actually, I averaged gaining one shot around from probably like 0.4, so 0.6.
Yeah, see, now the distance thing is, history tells us that it's a very dangerous road to go down. You must have been aware of that, but there was no alternative in your mind, I'm sure, to make the leap from where you were to where you wanted to be.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately it's one of those things now. I think that's the way the game is going. Well, I say unfortunately. I don't know really the right word to describe
to the converted here.
Well, I know that.
I'm not a big fan.
No, I know.
The one-dimensional aspect.
No, and I don't disagree with that either. Yeah. But I think that is the way the game is going. So, you know, for me, that was a big difference maker from 21 to 22, and that's, you know, strong argument to what helped me win my first major and you know, have a successful season. But I think the thing about my coach, Mike Walker, is like I absolutely trust him implicitly, and we were never going to go down a road where it could harm me, because he was always making sure everything was okay, as well as doing it the right way. It's very easy to do it the wrong way.
I was just going to say that. I mean, it's still, and
it's hard to do it the right way.
Any number of failures of guys. I mean, I'm looking at most high profile one at the moment is probably Matteo Manacero, who's just got his card back off the Challenge Tour recently. Nice to see him back, obviously, but that was the road he went down, and it made him, you know, a guy capable of winning at Wentworth to losing his card.
Definitely, and that's what I would say. You know, you have to do it the right way. You got to have the right people around you. I think you got to bring in, you know, if you don't have them, the right people, and I just feel very lucky that I did have the right people around me, and I do believe that that's why it paid off, because we did it the right way. Now, I had a little bit of a stumble this year, but we probably look back at it. It was a little bit technical and a little bit physical. Just that, you know,
I had missing fairways.
Yeah, just missing more fairways than I was used to. Yeah. So I think it's always one of those challenges that you gotta manage. It's a constant manage. but you can progress it slowly. You just got to have the patience and not do anything too drastic.
Mm-hmm. Inevitably, these things, we jump around a bit, but I wanted to, since we're into that distance part of it, the cross-handed chipping and the putting with a pin in are the two things that I need some explanation on these.
Cross-handed chipping has been a practice drill for a long time with Mike Walker and Pete Cowan. So I've been with them since I was like 15, and I've been doing it ever since. So and that was just as a training drill.
Is it to stop the inevitable breakdown of the left
wrist? No. I mean, originally when I chip, sometimes I'll drive the handle a little bit so the ball doesn't, your contact's not as good, and I have quite flexible wrists, so the range, the radius is always changing from between the floor and the club, so the strike would become inconsistent and the fly so because of that, obviously I was practicing left hand below right to try and get some consistency. Now, for me, I just felt so much more comfortable with doing that. My left arm felt straight. There was no break in the wrist. I felt consistent strike. And
the feel shots. So the feel, the word you just used, is so important, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. It was just simple chips for me. Ones that you don't need to play high flop shots or just dead straightforward that I was struggling on. So basically, the little shots for me just became more simpler because there was less breakdown in the wrist. It was just a much more simple motion, and that's where I feel like I've had success from it, really.
Where is the line? How far back do you
About
go?
30 yards.
Right.
Yeah, about 30 yards is kind of the limit. But I'd like to push it further. But for me, because I feel like the face is much more stable when I do it. I have more control of the strike.
Yeah.
And the direction, but the distance is hard to control.
Right.
So the strike and the direction is good.
You get to a point where you're maybe trying to hit it too hard, and that's where you lose the
Yeah, and the thing is, if you do get it out of sync, you'll shank it.
Right.
It's not like if you get out of sync with your normal grip, you just hit a bad one.
Yeah.
It's a shank. That's much more penal than just a bad one.
Have you done that in competition?
Yeah, I did it the week before the U.S Open.
Really? There you go.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah. And,
slightly awkward lie, to be fair to me, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's always, they say the hardest shot in golf's the one after the shank.
Well, well, tell me about it. Yeah.
And the putting with the pin in. I mean, I accept everything you just told me about cross-handed chipping.
No theory about this one.
Right, go on then.
2019 wasn't putting very well. Obviously, the new rule came in about putting in the pin. Gave it a whirl, started putting well. Then it stayed. That's it.
I can't get my head. I cannot get my head around that one. It just looks weird.
Yeah, sorry to break it to you.
I'm an old buffy when it comes to that. Anyway, I want to go back to the Ryder Cup. I've known you a while now, and you've never talked very highly of your first experience. So let's talk about this past year and how different it was, and how much better was it for you personally?
Yeah, listen. I think, first of all, from a personal point, I found it quite hard still. It was a fantastic experience. I was so happy to win. Everything that was done, Luke, the communication, everything was first class. Luke and the vice captains did a great job. The tour did a great job looking after us. Crowds, everything about it was special. But I was in a bit of a difficult spot because, obviously I'm not used to team golf. So it's kind of like, I didn't play very well, but we won. How am I supposed to feel? And that was really new to me, because last time I was in a team where that happened, I was 15, and you don't really care. It doesn't mean anything to you at that time. But I asked a friend who's very, very good at his sport and plays on a team. Football? And no, cricketer.
Right. Joe Root
from Sheffield. Yes. Yeah. And he sent me the most fantastic text about his experience, and about, he had a huge event that England won and recently, and he had one of his worst innings of all time, I think he said, and but he said he was absolutely delighted to be winning, to have won, and he was like, that's the beauty of team sport. Sometimes you get dragged along, and that's okay, because you've tried your best at the end of the day. And so I had a hard time with that, and still do really. I have a hard time my relationship with the Ryder Cup, just because I want to love it so much, and I do, and I absolutely love it. I'll never forget watching it as a kid, and now being part of 3 teams, and the videos we get during the week, the fans during the week. There is nothing like it, and they're the best events. And you want to play them every year. You don't want to just play them once every 2 years. You want to play them every week, and but yeah, I don't quite have. I don't feel like I quite have the love affair that maybe some other players do.
Will that change when you play really well in one?
I think it will, and I hope it will, because I hope I play well in one. Yeah. I hope I do.
You had that silly period this year when you went mental, basically, on the front 9.
I did, yeah, and I remember specifically we finished. We all were congratulating each other, Billy, Harry, and Rory, and Rory was so great with me for the 2 days I played with him, and I'll never forget that. But I just remember giving the interview afterwards, and I was like, that was one of the best days I've ever had on a golf course. And it was like 100% was, because for the first 6 holes, I just didn't miss. And that's what, 15-year-old me sat at home watching the golf, watching Ian Poulter do that, or whoever doing it. You're like, I want to do that. I want to be that person. I want to be that person. And I was, I lived my dream effectively.
Yeah.
And for that day, I was like, this is the best thing ever. Like, I'm going to go and do the same tomorrow and the same Sunday, and we're going to win the Ryder Cup. And it just wasn't to be for me personally, but as a team, it was an amazing week.
Yeah. It's a hard thing for people to give advice on, I think, without lapsing into platitudes and cliche.
I think so. Certainly not. Certainly in the golf space. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily feel like people in the golf space kind of understand that team. Obviously, people who've played Ryder Cups, you might be able to say, okay, they get it a little bit, but guys that play in teams week in, week out and have had success or haven't had success, but they've been playing really well, like, they get it. And I feel like that, Joe's text to me really kind of made me feel a lot better about myself and about the whole thing, and it made total sense to me.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask you to give away any secrets or what goes on in the team room and everything. The European guys do such a great job of not telling too much of what goes on, even when it goes really badly. I mean, the Faldo captaincy being the classic example of why. And even now, guys, we've had Ollie Wilson on this and others that were in that team, and they hint at it, but they don't tell you. Is it as good? If I can ask you that much about it, is it as good as people say? Or in my job, you hear things afterwards. Usually, little things that have gone on, and it's never really completely smooth sailing the whole way through the week. It can't be, I would imagine.
As a team,
yeah.
We didn't have one problem this year.
Right.
Yeah, we any of the years really, but particularly this year, I think this year was different because we had a young team, in my opinion, apart from Rosie, but Rosie won't mind me saying that.
Yeah.
And I think because we had a young team, everyone almost felt a bit closer in a way. There was no, everyone had been around the same time.
Yeah. They obviously bond well.
There was a really good mix, and I think that was what's so good. And I think, again, communication was really clear. We knew who we were going to be playing with, or at least thought we were going to be playing with. Just being with the people that you might be playing with, being with the people you might not be playing with, just being around people. Everyone just gets on so well.
Do you think it's more important for a captain to know who doesn't want to play with somebody than does?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just think for me that the biggest thing I've learned in my career is communication.
And the night when you win, we've all seen some social media footage of bus trips, etc. Were a couple of shandies taken even for you?
No, not for me. I had a couple of drinks, but like nothing really. It doesn't go down.
You're a complete amateur when it comes to that.
I'm not enjoying it as it's going down. You know, not like so many.
Probably Billy Foster, your caddy,
I'm sure
drinks
he
enough
did.
for the two of you.
I'm sure he did. Yeah, oh, that's for sure.
I was going to ask you about him. I mean, how he's obviously been around the block any number of times and caddied for Tiger Woods and a number of good players. What has he brought, and what did you think he was going to bring, and what has he brought to your package?
I always thought he was going to bring his experience. You know, that was pretty obvious. His directness in that, you know.
Yeah, you're always going to know what he thinks.
Tells it how it is. Tells it how it is. But I think, you know, one thing that I don't expect, but I would say that we're good friends. You know, I think we both love football. Both absolutely love our football team.
No, you don't. You're Leeds United and Sheffield United fans. Come on,
that's real football for you. But we both love football, so we got that in common. And it's funny. We laugh about it because we don't feel like anyone else really is a football fan. They're all these fair weather fans. Oh, I like Man United and I like Liverpool.
Yeah.
And you know, we like the teams where we're from, and we always enjoy that. But just like advice from a golf perspective, he's seen it all. You know, he's done it all, and to have that for me on the bag, it has been invaluable. There's times where I've been in contention, and you know, we've gone on to have a good finish or gone on to win, and he's saying, you know, don't worry, like, patient, it's going to come, and it does. He's right. You know, people at top crumble, or you know, you pick up a few late birdies, whatever. Always happens because he's seen it before. You know, he's done it before. So it's just a lot of things. But I think his honest approach is probably is the best thing, really. Because and I feel lucky in that all my team are like that. They'll tell it how it is.
Yeah. It's a nice little segue. I obviously wanted to talk to you about the U.S. Open victory and start with how important Billy was. And was there a moment where he said exactly the right thing that you look back on?
Very, but you know, that will forever be the greatest round I've ever played, that last round. And I don't really think that he needed to say anything other than the only thing that he said the whole day was on the after I had 3 putted on 11, on 12, he put his hand on my shoulder and he was like, come on, pal, like, we'll get it back. And that was it, really. And then literally just went par, birdie, parred in and won. And that was that was the only thing he needed to say the whole day, because I was firing on all cylinders. And we were laughing. I remember we laughed in the locker room afterwards. Every single number we had was perfect the whole day. Wasn't one bad number. You know, it's a 7-iron, it's an 8-iron, soft wedge, hard wedge, whatever it was like
there's a bit of luck attached to that, isn't
100%. Yeah, 100%. You know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, trying to think of somewhere recently where I was going well, but then I didn't have maybe a good second or third round, and we just after the round, it just felt so fiddly all day. It was like, oh, is it this one? Is it this one? I'm not sure, and it makes a huge difference.
How do you handle when it doesn't go to plan completely? Because and the reason I ask that is that I watch you in moments like that, and boy, you look pissed off.
I am. That's why, John. Yeah. I am. No, you know, that's something that I think ever since I turned pro has always been something that's it's hard to describe, because like it means so much to me. I want to win. I'm competitive. I want to win, and sometimes I don't feel like that's a great excuse in a way. Not an excuse, but everyone can say, "Oh yeah, they want to win," and it's not trying to be an excuse, but I just feel like it means something, and I always try to compare it to people with like office jobs, you know, and it's not quite the same, but I try.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, if you're in the office and you know, a deal's just gone south or something's gone wrong or whatever, are you just going to be like, oh, well, on to the next one, and just trot along. You're not, are you? You're just you're going to be mad for a brief amount of time. You're going to want to vent to whoever's nearest to you. And that's what happens, in golf. And some people are better at it than others, but it is something that I always want to get better at. Do I put enough work in it? Maybe not compared to other things, but it is something that I am conscious of.
How long does that look last, typically, after a round?
The
pissed off look.
Less so since winning the U.S Open. Right. Yeah, much less so.
Perspective has come with that.
Yeah, much less so.
Yeah. I don't want to leave that just you kind of brushed over it, firing all cylinders and all the rest of it. Yes, but what if you can remember what is it like in the moment? I mean, especially with the bunker shot. You played this magnificent bunker shot, the last everybody remembers. But it's like no other pressure. I mean, even the Ryder Cup's kind of different.
Yeah,
it's just different. Yeah. It's a different pressure, but and as bigger pressure, but probably just different. What makes you is it the ultimate satisfaction when you've performed with that level of pressure?
Yeah. I always, again, not to use things that I've already said in interviews, but I always remember after I won, the feeling of actually winning a major is the best feeling I've ever had. And then it's 10,000 times better than I thought it was ever going to feel like. And I think it's just the validation of all the work that I put in over the years, the, people around me who'd helped me. Yeah. Just everything involved with it. Mike's been with me since I was 15, been with Phil Kenyon since I was probably 18. Parents taking me here, there, and everywhere, and that it's like a dream come true, and particularly for me, mine is probably more special in my opinion than some others, given where I won it. My parents were there when I won it. There's loads of things that added up for me that made it very, very special.
Were there any tears?
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
do you cry when you're happy?
You can see him. You can see him briefly on Netflix. Yeah. I was absolutely fine after I won. Billy was obviously balling. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. And then my brother was balling, and I saw him, and that set me off. And then I saw Dad, and that, I just put. Then after that, I was kind of fine. But Netflix did an amazing job on the episode that they showed my US Open, and that's got me a few times.
And how does life change when you win one of those things?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. I mean, it's, listen, we're a year and a half on now pretty much, and it's calm. Yeah, I would say it's calmed down. It's not like I'm being asked to do this, that, and the other, but certainly at first it's unusual, press conference every week, and, sponsors kind of want to use their time a little bit more, and, just a lot more going on, I feel like, at tournaments. And
so you've got to be even more organised.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't necessarily feel like you can say no. And I think what the biggest thing I learned was time management was super important. And I felt like at times, not that it hindered me at all, but like, the year after, the rest of the year, and then sort of, sometimes at the start of the year, your time management, you have less time to kind of do what you did before. And it's funny, I remember talking to someone about golf's the only sport where you get better at it and have less time to practice it. If you're a footballer, you could be the best player in the world. You're still training whatever days. It's not like you've been pulled all over. Whereas golf, you win if I win a Grand Slam next year, I'm probably going to get sponsors are going to want more time. They're going to want more interviews.
All that trouble getting you on a podcast.
Yeah. Well, all that stuff. So all of a sudden, you've gone from practicing 9 to 5 days a week to actually, I've got to be here on this day, here on this day, here on this. Oh, I'm only can do 9 to 5 on 2 days. It's that's why it's about its constant balance.
Was the U.S. Open the one that you felt you were most likely to win?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes it works the opposite.
Yeah. True. I mean, yeah, I guess so.
I remember Jeff Ogilvy being on here, and he's not the straightest driver in the world, and you would have bet on him winning an Open or a Masters.
Yeah. Yeah.
both of which he's contended in, but never won. And here he pops up and wins on maybe the hardest course, tightest fairways.
Yeah.
It's a weird game.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah. Which leads me, again, segueing nicely into, I was looking at your record in the majors, and you probably know where I'm going to head with this. The Open.
Yeah.
It sticks out.
The Open.
It sticks out.
Yeah.
For somebody at your level, crap. I'm not being about,
you me both.
Yeah.
I don't know I honestly don't know what it is though. Like I couldn't put my finger on what it is. And that's the thing. I think like I could tell you other tournaments as to why I don't play well. Like, I could pick any tournament that I've played this year. Like, I don't play well there because of X. I don't play well there because of X, or whatever it is. The Open, is it my driving? Do I not putt well? Like, it's really been a wide range of it. And I think for me, I think open courses suit my game least, I think.
But then you won the Dunhill Links.
Yeah, but that was hugely different setup.
Yeah.
Hugely
different. The pins are a wee bit easier, aren't they?
The pins are bang in the centre of every green. I don't know. It's something that... It's funny, I was actually looking the other month again at the stats and stuff, and obviously there's a win in there, so it kind of jumps the numbers a bit, but my strokes gained is better in majors than it is in regular tournaments. That's so the numbers tell me. So, even though it's not like I've had loads and loads of good finishers, it is, that's a pretty obvious thing that I'm better in the majors than regular tournaments. But I really, it's something that I want to work out of what is the specific stuff that A, you need to do well at an Open, and B, what am I lacking at the Open? Because there's obviously something there. Like, I mean,
it's a different course every year, but it's
the same concept.
Exactly,
really.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. Obviously.
Because it's very rare nowadays that there's certainly the ones I've played that I feel like there's rough at the Open. I feel like most of the time it's pretty dry. Obviously it normally plays pretty firm. So the wind skills are kind of needed, and
see all of that. That's
this is the thing, and this goes
it's in
back
your head. It's got to be
but this goes back to the numbers though. People had always had this image of me. It's like, great chipper, great putter, great in the wind or whatever, short and straight. But actually, when I've played my best golf over the last few years, I would say I'm longer than average and straight. I'm a great putter, average chipper, and poor iron player. And people are like, oh, he must be good at the Open because, you got to be a good iron player, keep him in the wind. Yeah. But, like, we don't, in my opinion, we don't play enough in the wind now or wind or links courses to kind of get a feel for it. I'll never forget the Rory quote. I was going somewhere and I can't remember which Open it was. I want to say maybe it was St. George's in 11. And he said, someone said, oh, you're going to adapt your game or whatever. He's like, oh, I'll just wait for 4 days of good weather and I'll win one of these. I'll never forget that. And I feel like that's not what
he was naive then, though.
No, of course he was, and he would say the same thing himself.
Yeah.
But it always made me laugh because I was thinking to myself, I was like, he's got a point. Now I know, like now looking back, like I understand his point because it's like, for one tournament, are you going to go out your way for 4, 5, 6 weeks of the year to go and work on some link stuff? Practice ball flight, all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, you're probably not because you're going to go and play all these other events. You can't fit it in.
Yeah, but
it's the Open Championship, so are you going to...
Yeah, I mean, you've almost won a Scottish Open. You listen to the playoff. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I did.
So...
Yeah.
No, well, nobody does.
Doesn't play firm.
This is not
when
news.
It's firm. It's so funny. One year we played that. It played so good on the Tuesday. It was firm, fast. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
This is the Renaissance.
This is so good. Yeah. Super, super good. And then it poured down Wednesday. I think Pro-Am was cancelled. And then the next day I'm like spinning a 9-9 off the green. I was like, no, this isn't what it was like yesterday.
Yeah. Well, that's links golf as well.
Yeah.
A lot of it's dictated by the firmness of the turf.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. Inevitably, with these things at the moment, we're finishing off by asking about what the hell is going on in golf. What's your view of
what's happening?
Where are we? Yeah, I mean, and what would you like to see the end result be?
I think it's difficult, I really do. Obviously, I spoke to you earlier in the day about a couple of things, and I don't really think the world golf rankings are really valid.
I'd get rid of them.
Yeah,
I don't think they mean anything.
Not valid at all.
The majors can come up with ways of filling up their fields quite happily.
Yeah, and it's like people are like, oh, you're seventh in the world. I'm like, pinch of salt. I don't necessarily believe that.
I think if you and I, right this minute, wrote down what we thought were the 10 best players in the world, would be maybe in a slightly different order.
Off. Yeah.
Would be pretty similar.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, you don't care who's 35th.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
Yeah.
And the best player in the world is a different guy every day.
Yeah. And I think for me that I actually look at a website called Data Golf, and they've got their own ranking system. I don't know exactly how it's worked out. I think it's the number of rounds averaged or whatever, strokes gained. That is by far the best way to work out the rankings if you're going to do them, because it's relative to who you're playing against.
Yeah.
And so I would actually go off those, and I think off those I'm like 12th or something. So I feel like that's more of a realistic,
I can never get my head around the fact that it's just all nonsense. I mean, if I'm playing on the European Tour and you're playing on the PGA Tour and you're playing on all these different courses on different days and different weather and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Everything's different. Yeah. How can you possibly...
Well,
it just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's true. And then it's a case of, but then how do you rank the best player in the world? It's, what's the way to do it?
That's just a difference of opinion.
Well, it is.
And as I say, I think it's a different guy every day.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But some guys with that in the contracts won't want that, will they?
No, that's true. Good point. So anyway, bigger picture.
Well, yeah,
where are we headed?
I hope something gets resolved. I'll be honest. Like, I think from a selfish point of view, I think obviously I'm in a good spot. I can play the PGA Tour. I can play the European Tour. I think having the access to playing all over the world, I think is really important. I think how that would look is obviously difficult because, I wouldn't, if the PGA Tour are going to take the best events from the DP World Tour, then they need to do a trade and give them the rest that aren't so good. So guys from DP World Tour can go have somewhere to play.
That would happen just because you can't, there's only so many weeks in the year.
Exactly. But to me, I just think it's got to be a global tour. I think I said to you earlier, in an ideal world, in my opinion, it could look something like how football does it, Premier League, Championship, League One. Just having, because, you might have 70 guys in a division. You've got your promotions, you got your relegations. You could have like a little playoff event for each one or whatever it is. It's just something it's something different. It's something fresh. It's something that I think would probably have legs. At the minute they've got the PGA Tour, the fall series or whatever it is, and it's
nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yeah. Nobody cares. I don't even get it. I don't understand it.
It's like Live Golf.
It's ridiculous.
I went to the first Live Golf event in, Hemel Hempstead, wherever it was, and saw what it was like, wrote about it, and then I've taken no interest in it since then. And that, I've said this to Lee Westwood, and it says, look, the biggest problem is that I'm the golf fan. I don't care. Yeah, that's your biggest hurdle.
Yeah. And I for Liv, I don't get the direction of where they're going, but at the same time, I look at their season, and I'll be honest, their season's a dream. As a golfer, it's 14 events, 4 majors. That is an absolute dream. You look at the DP World Tour, we finish this week, the season starts next week. I mean, that is, it is ridiculous. Credit to the PGA Tour, I think, all being well, January to August, in my opinion, good golf season. no golf. That if in an ideal world, no golf September to December.
Get people out the way when the NFL starts.
Yeah, people want golf then when it comes to January. They want to tune in. They want to say, what's been going on? Like, it's exciting. At the minute, it's just like, they're playing again. Like, where are they playing this time?
I always think the smartest thing the NFL in America, which is huge, as we know.
Yeah.
One of the smart things they do is that it's a fairly short season.
Yeah.
So every game is special.
Yes.
That is far from the truth in golf.
100%. And I think that is what I find so annoying, not only as a player, but I think of people that want to watch, I'm sorry, but you don't want to tune in every week. No. You just don't want to tune in every week.
Well, you don't want to play every week, either.
No, exactly. You're not going to get the big guys every week. You're not going to get eyes on TV every week. You just look at some of the events that we've got on both sides of the tours. They've been around for a long time, and it's like no one ever, no one's really that bothered about playing in them. And I do think it needs freshening up. I do think something needs to be done.
Well, that might be the one legacy of LIV that's good, and that changes that are going to be made that wouldn't have happened without them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been critical of the PGA Tour in terms of things that we've just been talking about, is that the sameness and the too much of it.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm sorry, I've had enough.
Yeah. No, totally. And I can see why other people might feel the same way.
So, solution? What's the utopia for you? What would be the perfect end result?
Everyone should just stop following golf and watch football instead. No, I'm just kidding. No, I honestly, I just couldn't tell you, John. I just think there's so many. I think that's the other thing. And I think that is obviously the biggest problem. There's too many variables within golf. There's not just one governing body.
There's too many organisations.
100%.
Alphabet soup.
It's a nightmare. You look at every other sport, it's like they've got one thing that oversees everything.
Their own agendas, their own egos, their own politicals.
Exactly, and their own rules. Yeah. You can't do this, you can do that. You can't. I mean, I know there was issues last week in Sun City with this, a huge sponsor wanted a player, and the player wanted to go play, but the tour didn't say he could play. It's like, I just don't get it all. And like I say, I feel lucky that someone else is taking care of it for me. But at the same time, I don't think it's great for everyone else who wants to watch golf.
Well, I don't think you to imply that you should bog yourself down thinking about it too much either. I mean, it's not really, you're not employed to do that. I mean, you could argue that Rory, for all his great intentions and the way he's stood up for what he thought was right over the last few months, is great as he's played, it might, who knows, it might have been even better.
No, it blows me away how he does it, honestly. It's
What was it like playing with him in the Ryder Cup?
It was great. Yeah, it was really, really good. It was really good. I mean, for me,
did you pick up anything?
No, I didn't pick up anything. I think for me it was like I could have played absolutely horrendous in all of them. I mean, I didn't play great the second day, but I could have played horrendous in all of them. But I just had faith that he was going to do something. I just had the trust that he was going to, he'll make a birdie. I'm not worried. He'll make a birdie, or he'll, do something special. And that was the thing. When you're playing with someone like that, it gives you the freedom to play that.
He's one of the few stop and watch guys.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Just the way he hits the ball, and it is. You watch him and it's just very, very different.
My very last question is, what's the best piece of advice you've given your brother, and what would he say if I was asking him what was the best advice?
Best piece of advice that he's listened to or not listened to?
Well, there you go.
No, I think...
Or does he come to you for advice?
Yeah, he'll ask me information. I think... My best advice, really, I think, in this day and age is about probably learning to practice smart. And again, it goes back to time management. I think it's so easy to be out there for, 5 hours and just hitting balls at the same target, trying to ingrain a swing in. Like, that's not how it works anymore. There's science to prove that that's not how it works. It's not how you change things. And I think it's very easy to come out here with that mindset and just you end up burning yourself out, and it's hard to kind of get any better from that. Whereas I think nowadays with some of the science, it's kind of like you can do things differently and improve even faster and improve better. And I just think there's a lot to kind of explore on all sorts of things, really.
Mm. As a newly engaged man, are you finding that you've had to adjust?
No,
not through because you don't want it, just because it's just inevitable.
No, not all. No, it's great. It's I mean, I've not really done any wedding planning other than I've said I've wanted.
You won't. You'll be told to show up.
Exactly. Get a time and a place. But no, everything's great, and I think that's one of the reasons why I got engaged in the first place, because nothing changes. It's as good as it was before. So
I'm sorry, I do have one last question. You're the Mr. Planner. You'll sit down at the end of this year. You'll look back at what as you've done this year, what you've done well, what you haven't done so well. And are you a target setting guy? What will be the targets?
I am and I'm not. Something that I kind of want to learn a bit more about, because I think it's very easy, and I kind of almost got in the trap a few years ago, where I was like, I want to hit this, I want to do that, these goals, this goal. But then my coaches, I remember Phil Kenyon in particular, like, no, I don't think you should do that, because if you don't achieve it, knowing you're going to get worked up about it. And I was like, well, yeah, okay, that makes total sense.
So your temperament's got to be taken into account.
Yeah, so it's kind of trying to figure out ways that the cliche, it's like process goal. What are you going to do to kind of, but yeah, I still have targets. I want to win every tournament I play in, but majors have a higher priority than others. But it's just how we go about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, as you just said, the 1.6 shots or 1.4 or whatever. If you keep doing that, you will win.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think as long as you kind of trust that, and you can just slowly improve on that, and I think the biggest thing is having patience. If you've got the patience to do it and to keep doing the work, then you shouldn't, on paper, you shouldn't have an issue. You just got to be patient and let it happen.
Sounds easy. Or maybe I'll give it a try.
Sounds super easy, doesn't it?
When I'm a wee bit older, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, Matt, thank you very much for your time.
No,
it's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed the chat. I hope you have too.
Thanks, John. Yeah, enjoyed that.
Cheers.
Some really thoughtful stuff in there, not the least of it being a bit of a roadmap for all of us on how to get better at this game. Big thanks to Matt, and also to Huggy for the effort in organising all of that at such short notice. Now, I know we were supposed to hear Vinnie Giles on this episode, but there's been an executive decision made to postpone that interview until the new year, and instead we're going to hear the remarkable comeback story of a former professional who went years without touching a club, but is now dominating the senior amateur ranks in a way that has never been seen.
I think that I'm an inspiration to a lot of people. Like you say with Peter Senior, I think I bring a lot to a lot of companies. So I think if people start to embrace that, then we or myself will start to promote the sport.
That's the fascinating tale of the seemingly evergreen Nadine Goal. Next time on The Thing About Golf.